was a busy year in international news. From a cruise ship disaster in Italy to the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. And then there were the London Summer Olympics. Our Europe Bureau Chief Sean Mallon looks back at some of the top stories that made news outside of Canada this year.
Among the memorable images of 2012, the stricken cruise ship Costa Concordia, aground after it passed too close to the Italian island of Giglio. 32 people died. Captain Francesco Schettino was accused of manslaughter. A monster hurricane dubbed Superstorm Sandy ripped through the Caribbean before pounding New York and New Jersey, wiping out seaside communities, flooding subways, and killing more than 250 people. But there were stories to uplift. There was the rain-soaked but enthusiastic celebration of the Queen's 60th anniversary as monarch, highlighted by a 1,000-boat procession on the Thames. Then, just a few weeks later, London welcomed the world for the Summer Olympics. It turned out to be a triumph, both for the organizers and for the athletes of the home country. Canada's Olympians fell short of their goal with only 1 gold, but the women's soccer team inspired in winning bronze. The country that invented the Olympics had another rough year. Greece at times teetering on the edge of bankruptcy and an exit from the Eurozone. There were 2 elections, more painful cuts, and the troubling rise of a violent neo-fascist party. In November, there was a lethal flare-up between Israelis and Palestinians. Rockets fired by Hamas across the border, Israeli airstrikes on Gaza. A ceasefire was brokered by Egypt's new president, Mohamed Morsi. But only days later, Morsi faced an uprising on the streets of Cairo after proposing to grab new powers that his critics said brought back bad memories of Hosni Mubarak. Syria's agony dragged on, effectively becoming a civil war. Bashar al-Assad clung to power against an ever-growing Free Syrian Army. It was a year of transition and comebacks in world politics. Despite a battle with cancer, Venezuela's Hugo Chavez prevailed in his election. Then he revealed he needed more treatment. In Russia, Vladimir Putin returned to the presidency despite protests that the election was tainted. China's change of leadership was smoothly choreographed by the ruling Communist Party as Xi Jinping took over from Hu Jintao. The law finally caught up with Italy's former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi, convicted of tax fraud and sentenced to a year in jail pending appeals. Despite it all, he's planning a comeback. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange lost all his appeals to stop extradition from the UK to Sweden to face allegations of rape. Then he headed off deportation by holing up inside the embassy of Ecuador, claiming asylum. There were shocking outbursts of violence. In Newtown, Connecticut, 20 elementary school students and 6 women were shot dead by a troubled young man who then took his own life, bringing American gun control once again into the spotlight. In Toulouse, France, police cornered and shot dead a man named Mohamed Merah, believed to have been the killer of 3 soldiers, 3 children, and a rabbi. In a suburb of Denver, Colorado, a man opened fire at a midnight showing of the new Batman movie. 12 people were killed and 58 wounded. And in Norway, Anders Behring Breivik was found sane and guilty of murdering 77 people in a bombing and shooting rampage. A 14-year-old Pakistani girl, Malala Yousafzai, dared to speak up for the right of young women to seek an education, only to be shot by the Taliban. She miraculously survived and was flown to Britain for treatment, and now there are calls for a Nobel Peace Prize. International fascination in the British royal family was unabated. There were the naked pictures of Prince Harry partying in Vegas before he flew off for military duty in Afghanistan. There were the topless shots of Kate, published in a French magazine. And then the Duchess and husband Prince William announced that she was pregnant. The joy tempered by a bizarre turn when 2 Australian DJs staged a prank call to the hospital where she was being treated for acute morning sickness. The distraught nurse who took the call later died in an apparent suicide. As 2012 ends, royal watchers now breathlessly await the birth of the newest member of the House of Windsor. Sean Mallon, Global News, London.